Okay, welcome back to the Investigative Journal on this August 15th, 2016 day on our calendar. I'm your host, Greg Anthony. You should know that by now if you listen to my show. We're on every day, Monday through Friday, from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. That's Pacific time on FirstAmendmentRadio.com. They also, thankfully, play the show at 11 a.m., so if you're an early riser, you can catch the show in the daytime. And unfortunately, if you can't get either of those two live shows, then go to my long-standing website at arcticbeacon.com. That's arcticbeacon.com. And that website I've had is a long-standing website. For over a decade, we've been talking about the Vatican-led New World Order. Yes, we put it all together, the spiritual, the political. And today I was going to interview Leo Zagami from Rome. But if folks don't know what's going on in Rome right now, outside of the things we talked about, the illegal immigration, like it's going on here, in August, Italians take their holiday. They get 30 days off, and they usually travel all over. And Leo's at a beachside resort, relaxing, taking care of his wife, and they're having a good time. She's been a bit ill, so we're going to postpone the interview today with Leo and talk about the coup in Turkey and many other things that are affecting us here in America that have not been covered by this lying mainstream media. And so we'll get to that next week, Monday. So today, that just brings up a point. Aren't you getting tired of being lied to by your politicians? Really, aren't you getting tired of being lied to by many of these evangelical Satanist people on the pulpit posing as Christians, but actually working for the Vatican? Aren't you getting tired of it? And aren't you getting tired of even listening to some of your friends and close family members tell you that you're a little bit off the rocker for ever thinking that the Vatican and all of these people aren't giving you a straight story? Well, I am. And don't worry, though. Don't worry. You're on the right track. And there are people who understand what we talk about on this show, and I've tried to point them out over the years. In the spiritual realm, you've listened to many of my shows about how Tony Alamo and his ministry have been persecuted. Also talking to other true Christians who follow the Word of God talk on my show. And then you've heard the other side of the story, the political side, where you see the graft, you see the corruption, you see what Rome is really all about. And that's how I got involved in this doing a show like this, because I came from the mainstream media, but I lived in Rome and I found out firsthand what I'm talking about here on this show. So I just wanted to get that off my chest. But today we're going to go to part 7 of what I call the greatest theatrical stage play ever produced in the history of mankind. And the title this year comes every 4 years. The big show is the Presidential Elections 2016. Now, this has been going on every 4 years. They reset their theatrical clock, and they set their, what I call, a fantasy agenda, and it's there for all of us to consume. Now, let me give you the premise. I look at this election, which goes on every day. They have stage performances every day now until November 8th, when they have what's called this election. Then the president is appointed, etc., etc. Well, I look at it through a different prism. I look at it through the lens of a moviegoer, just like I was sitting watching a Hollywood movie. However, this one's even better if you really understand it all. Now, when I watch a Hollywood movie, first of all, I'm interested in the main actors. Many times, I'll go to a movie just because some of my favorite Al Pacino's in it. Edward G. Robinson. Some of you millennials might not remember him. Humphrey Bogart, Burt Lancaster. All of these guys, headliners. I go there for the stage actors, and then I want to know about them. Where'd they come from? How did they get there? How did they get their jobs? How did they become actors? That's just human nature. And I did the same thing with the three main actors in this stage performance: Barack Obama, Donald Trump, and Hillary Rotten Clinton. And I haven't got yet to Hillary, and I'm going to do that next week. We looked at how Donald and Barack became leading actors in this great play. And I said they had to suck up, just like many Hollywood guys do, to the producers and directors. Then, of course, when you're watching a really good Hollywood movie, you really want to find out who wrote this, right? And who are the producers, who are the directors, who are the behind-the-scenes guys that put this beautiful motion picture together. And then they have every year the Academy Awards, and then you find out, this guy was the director, this was the producer. Well, the funny thing about this show, this big show, which is even, and I explained, even bigger than Hollywood, and this is really the big show. And there haven't been many main actors from Hollywood that got a chance to star in this show, albeit Ronald Reagan was one, and he was an actor in Hollywood that he finally made it to the big show. So my question was, how did they get there? So I started to tell you how Barack Obama got there, his connections to the writers and the producers, so as the connections of Donald Trump to the writers and the producers. I haven't gotten to Hillary, and one reason is everybody knows her. She's been around a long time. This isn't the first time she's starring. In fact, I don't know how she got the job this year. She's terrible. But maybe that's why Barack is there to give her a hand, because he shouldn't be performing in this. He had his big debut in 2000. When was it? He's been there 8 years, so he's been there through 2 election cycles. But he's there because they kind of contractually had to give Clinton the nod, and she's not really doing well. In fact, they try to hide her as much as they can. But the point I'm trying to make is I got sidetracked then, because the thing I wanted to tell you was I found out who writes this play, who writes this stuff. I found out who the producers are, and I started to get into who they were. And I said the writers of this great theatrical play called The Elections are the Jesuits. And I was really astonished when people I would talk to just over the weekend, I would say something and they don't even know who the Jesuits are. And I said, wow, these guys are really humble. I mean, they don't even want to take credit for their work. And I was saying, aren't they a good group of people to write this fantasy we're all listening to and watching daily and watching all this stuff go on? And they're putting on a good show this year. They've selected a Republican actor named Trump, a flamboyant billionaire. He's really increased the box office for this show. And so then I said, well, who are the producers? And we started to get into that. But before I do, and today we're going to do that, and this may take a few episodes because it's that important. And the reason it's that important is that I said that this is person emailed me and said, Greg, you're saying that everything I see on TV regarding the presidential elections is a fantasy. It seems real to me. And he says, prove it. And I said, well, I'm trying to do that. And the reason I'm trying to do that is that you have to look at the writers. First, you have to understand that, take it from me, I've got inside information. I happen to be in Rome. I know what these guys are doing. And I started to get into their background. And this is not just writing a presidential election this year. They've been doing this for hundreds of years. And so I thought I'd start out in the 1500s when Jesuit theater was conceived and Jesuit education was conceived, and to show you how much experience this organization, who passes on from generation to generation the writing pen to keep this fantasy going. So we started that, and I'm going to get to that again in another segment, really in depth, on some of the past performances they put on leading up to this one, showing you there's a pattern. Okay, so secondly, people asked me, okay, we know who the writers are now. Who are the producers? Who are the big shots getting the money, doing all these things? And I said, well, why don't we deal with that today? Start with it. It's not going to be a quick 5-minute show. This is going to be done in a way so you understand the producers are the key behind this. And they too have been passing the torch down for centuries and centuries and centuries. And I think it's important first to get that out of the way, and then to talk about the plot of this movie that we're watching right before our eyes in 2016. What do they have in store for us? What have they done in the past? What really are their motives here? And where do they draw their information from? Where do they do their research? What do they use? Who is involved in this play that I'm telling you has every aspect of intrigue, political, spiritual, deception. The key to this is deception. They write into these scripts, and that's what this is really, a script. Everything now has been written out to basically the end times. Yes, they know who's going to win the election. They wrote it out already. And we've proved that in the past, how they've done it. Now, how do they get this information? How do they wield this power? How can they basically deceive so many people, making it seem as if it's real, but then turning it into reality in our daily lives? Well, I said we turn it into reality in our daily lives. We are the ones that look at this show and think it's real. And why wouldn't we? Look at what they've done here. They talk about every crime. They talk about it's got sex, it's got violence, it's got intrigue, overthrowing of governments, wars. Their shows always have wars, and this has been going on since the 1500s. So they've been taking a script and improving on it and writing it, and now we're at a stage in this kind of script in the world, this fantasy Hollywood movie that they portray as real, down to the main ending here. It's getting all to their main ending, and that's the plot I'm going to show you after I get to the main producers that you need to know, because they actually hire the writers. So we got to know who they are, and I will do that first. So it's a little tedious, bear with me. Now, you want to know the plot? I'm going to tell you really in depth what it is. I'm going to give you a little hint. These writers are so deceptive. They have been using the Bible as their main research project, their main research tool. But what they do is they counterfeit it, they reverse everything in it, and they basically change God's plan in every way possible, both in the spiritual and in the political world. So it's gotten to that point, and I'm going to explain how they do this. It's very deceptive. And basically, they've taken a satanic view and turned it into what we consider a God's view. And it's not. That's the trickery here. It goes all the way to the Bible. And I'm going to show you step by step when I begin the plot. Where are we going to start? In Genesis. And I can show you what they're doing. Now, here's the real deal. It always comes in threes with them. And let me explain. In the Bible, there's what? There's the dragon, there's the beast, and there's the Antichrist. That should give you a clue of how they're going to reverse everything here. Now, secondly, they're in the true Word of God, God's real plan for us. God's plan starts in Genesis. He lays out everything right there for us. And it is amazing how they, even to this day, are changing that. And I'm going to explain it. This is the trickery. This is the way they can get you and grab you into their reality, which is really fantasy. And they do it through trickery. They do it through, as Satan would do, the reversal of everything, because he cannot stand for people or anyone to follow God's plan. And he's bent on changing every bit of it, and that's what we're seeing today. Now, involved in this is not only that, not only the trilogies in the Bible, God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit, but we have this also in the producers. They come in a trilogy as well. And I'm going to show you who they are, and tell you that it's not only the spiritual world they deal with, but they'll deal with the political and social world that you live in. Everything has been reversed. There's got to be a power, and they do it through trickery. And there's signposts that I'll show you here, because the producers, these guys too, they don't want to take credit for their work either. And boy, aren't they humble. But is it for another reason that they don't want to take credit for? Do they want to deceive you? They want to make it seem like somebody else is really writing this because they want to be protected. Because what happens, the key to this whole story, folks, is when you watch this movie daily, when you watch the presidential elections daily, then after the show's on, all of these offshoot stories that they give you turn into reality. They're taking everything, it's order out of chaos. That'll give you another clue of their plot and how it operates. And so let's worry about that in a minute. But let's first start with who these people are. Who are the big producers that don't have their names on the credits of this movie? And they're really three corporations working together. They're bringing together the political and the spiritual in a very, very deceptive way, and they don't even want credit for it, but I'm going to give them credit finally for what they've done and how deceitful it really is. World events, folks, of which are basically mostly engineered as fantasy or created for you, leave a trail that leads to the very architects of this or the producers. And how we can find them is we decided. I looked to where the Jesuit writers came from and then worked my way around how they operate. And they're involved in every one of these cities big time. And we next discover that there are 3 cities on earth that come under no national authority. They have separate laws. They pay no taxes. They have their own police force and even possess their own flags of independence. These 3 cities, these producers, who are having the Jesuits and all of their underlings write the story, control everything, the economy, military onslaughts, spiritual beings of those in power, etc., etc. The cities are actually corporations, though, and they are 1, the City of London, the District of Columbia, and Vatican City. Now, when I say the City of London, it is a carved out area in London that has nothing to do with England. It is separate, just like I said above. District of Columbia, where your capital is, has nothing to do with the United States of America. They have canon law. They have their own laws. Everything is away from the authority. It has nothing to do with America. It's separate. And Vatican City is the same way, carved out in Italy as a nation power, as a nation, separate nation, separate city, with its own laws. And together, these 3 producers, they control politicians. That's why they control the writers, who then hire the actors, who are on the big stage now in America, Trump, Clinton, Obama, to start off with, the courts, educational institutions, food supply, natural resources, foreign policies, economics, media. And like I said, the media is nothing more than a movie reviewer. And they review the movie very biasedly because they're controlled by these same producers. It's very simple. When you have a Hollywood movie, you hire a publicity team to give you the best shot at making people believe that this is going to be a great movie. That's exactly what they do with the New York Times, with all of the media now. It's very, very controlled. And they also control the money flow of most nations, as well as almost 80% of the world's entire wealth. Now, these guys are big shots, and this is really how it works. Their ultimate aim, and this is really their aim. This, when you write a movie, you have a script, right? And did you ever understand that you write it, and then all of a sudden somebody from up above in the movie industry says, no, we can't have an ending like that. And they start controlling the script and making it and carving it, writing it the way they want it to be written. That's exactly what these people are doing. So, their ultimate goal is to build a totalitarian rule of global scale, a one world government, a one world order. Well, where people will be divided into rulers and ruled after they have depopulated the world to numbers they wish to rule over. See, this is their grand plot. And I'm just giving you the ending here. But man, there's so many things to talk about when we get to this idea, when we talk about how these writers really scripted this using the fabric of the Bible, and how they've reversed it, how they have basically deceived and changed everything to fit their script. But the deception goes to make it feel as if you will be protected by them. It's a masterful script, but I just want you to know how they do it, what the real world is all about, and how they've changed everything. And what we need to really understand is that the world does not work according to what we've been led to believe. So, that is a key point. And most people have not got it yet. But let me give you a clue here. At the center of each of these city-states, these three main characters, these three main producers of this worldwide play, now their stage play is the presidential elections 2016. And you got to understand, America is a very big player in this. That's why I call it the big show. Now, how you know they're doing this is that in each one of these cities, there is what is called an obelisk. In this city, in Vatican City, you'll find one. In Washington, you'll find one in the Washington Monument, and the London obelisk, Cleopatra's Needle, located on the banks of the River Thames. This obelisk was transported to London and erected in 1878 under the reign of Queen Victoria. The obelisk originally stood in the Egyptian city of On, and I'll get into some of the other things on that. Now, in D.C., the obelisk is known as the Washington Monument. It was dedicated to George Washington by the Secretive Brotherhood of Freemasonry, Grand Lodge in the District of Columbia, established in 1848. They are contributed 22 Masonic memorial stones, 250 Masonic lodges financed the Washington Monument obelisk, including the Knights Templar Masonic Order. The Vatican obelisk, located in St. Peter's Square, was actually moved from Egypt to its current location in 1586. The circle on the ground represents the female vagina, while the obelisk itself is the penis. This is commonly known as occult symbolism. So, I got about a minute here before the break, and let me explain this. And I'll get back to what this means today, because it really is a signpost for the wars they've created if we really do our homework. Now, how I know these producers present a deceptive picture in their movie that they say is real is that these obelisks should not be there. In fact, the city-states they created shouldn't be there either. They're done for a reason. They're done to keep themselves away from the real, a way of hiding themselves, giving you a false story. But these occult symbols tell you that they are not representing Christianity. They are not representing Catholicism. They are representing something more sinister, Babylon. The Babylonian concept is right here, occult concept right here. And boy, I think that's really weird to me. I mean, I don't know how these people can do such things, to base their lives on numbers and all these occult things, when God's plan is so beautiful when you look at it. Back on the Investigative Journal in 3 minutes, and we'll get back to more of the greatest story ever told, the greatest history given to us that is fake, presidential elections 2016.
The book of Revelation says, "The spirit of prophecy is the testimony of Jesus Christ." This is at the very heart of FirstAmendmentRadio.com. In that spirit, we have created the Prophecy Reality News app for all of your mobile devices, streaming First Amendment Radio 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Available for your Apple, Android device, and smartphone, absolutely free. Get the Prophecy Reality News app installed today, so you can listen to First Amendment Radio wherever you are. The Prophecy Reality News app. Get it now.
The program you are listening to is 100% sponsored by you, the listener, on this First Amendment Rights Media channel. You will notice that there are few commercials on this radio network. There's a good reason for that. Corporate advertising dollars come with strings that limit program content. So without your help, these programs cannot continue on internet or our several affiliates. If you benefit by the educational law programs, we ask you to give. If you are admonished or nurtured by the Bible and ministry programs, we ask you to give. If some voice a cause that you are passionate about, we ask you to give. If you believe in any of these, we ask you to support them as you would a missionary on a continual basis, as if giving a tithe for missionary radio. These programs are not commercially viable and must be supported by those faithful to the cause of truth. Look for the button to sponsor your favorite programs at our listen and schedule pages on the internet. Then, when you subscribe, we will send you the last quarterly MP3 CD of that program immediately, and continue to do so with each new quarter. We will also give you unlimited archive access to all of our programs. We're asking you to give much less than a tithe, so that you may also send support directly to a particular program host, cause, and anywhere else the Spirit may lead you. Do all to the glory of our God and Creator, for His holy nation, the only kingdom that will last forever. Thank you for listening. Since the beginning of time, kings have sought it, nations have fought for it. It has been traded, it has been borrowed, it has been purchased, it has been stolen. There's a reason for it. To secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and to our posterity, invest with the security of gold and silver. Call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188 or visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net. Listen to Financial Survival with your host Melody Cedarstrom right here on FirstAmendmentRadio.com at 4 p.m. Eastern or 1 p.m. Pacific Time. Visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net or call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188. Toll free 1-800-375-4188.
Okay, we are back for the second half hour of the Investigative Journal, and I told you this was going to take a while, so I may have to do a number of shows. Well, a couple on the producers, and then get into the plot. But I can tell you that when you look at this, when you look at the obelisks, I've done shows on it in the past, and its significance to the war that they have created now. You see, in every one of their shows, there's a war that they create, they finance, they push on the people, and then they hire the right people to sort of roll that snowball down the hill. So the one they're doing now is the war on terror worldwide, and I don't think I have to explain to you, you've seen that, Islamic radical terrorism. And they use the name ISIS, which is really who they worship in these three obelisks. It is a Babylonian, it's a pagan symbol worshiping the goddess Isis. One of them, they have different, these goddesses have different names in different countries back then. But anyway, that's exactly what it is. So they're telling you that they really have fomented this war, created it. And recently, the actor playing the part as the Republican nominee, Donald Trump, recently stated that Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton, through their policies in the recent years, which have kind of funneled or created a vacuum in the Middle East, where ISIS has grown now from 6 or 7 countries to 28. He said there actually should be the founder of ISIS, and they should get the MVP award from ISIS for their dereliction of duties, as if you were, thinking of a sports team. And actually, Obama called them the JV team. So see how they play this out? And it all comes from these producers who then pass it down to the writers who are telling them, okay, this is what you got to get into the script. So that's just one little example. There are so many more I could give you right now into this plot, how they do this, how it all works together. But in the city of London, for example, here's another little interesting thing. The city of London they created was somewhere in the 1600s, late 1600s, and King William was at the throne when he carved out this little area that is a private corporation and is controlled by the Bank of England. Now, Rothschild controlled the banks of England now, Lloyd's of London, the London Stock Exchange is there, all British banks, the branch offices of 384 foreign banks, 70 USA banks, Fleet Street newspaper and publishing monopolies, headquarters of worldwide Freemasonry is there, headquarters for the worldwide money cartel known as the Crown. Now, it might be interesting if you understand the Crown and the Queen, they're still under the control of the Vatican. So that's why I said the head of these three cities is the Vatican, the spiritual head. Because without the spiritual and the political and financial getting together, they could never get the ending of their play to work out the way they want. One world government, one world order, one world religion. It wouldn't work. You need it all. And that, we will point out how it starts in Genesis when I get to the plot and how they've written this thing out, and you're going to see how it plays out now. But one interesting thing that plays out is recently the Queen, who's getting up there right now, I think she's 90 something, had announced that she may retire but turn over the kingship she's going to pass over her son and give it to William. So there you would have a Prince William, right? A signpost. Now, everybody thinks Brexit, you've heard of Brexit, is a good thing. I think it's another signpost. Now listen why. When England, everybody said this, one of the plots is you have, even in the presidential elections you're seeing it, Donald Trump stands for nationalism, stands for strong borders, stands for basically everything the New World Order doesn't want, while Hillary Clinton stands for the Pope's social justice through Bernie Sanders, who went and kissed the Pope's ring. She's incorporated that into her platform. And she supports basically a country without borders. She's supporting the Pope's social agenda and basically is in direct opposition to Trump's policies of nationalism. And I'll get into that later on how that really plays out for them. But, and it should give you a key who's probably going to win this thing and who they've already scripted in to win it, but we'll get there later. Now, when you think of the Brexit vote, you immediately think, wow, they want to pull out of the EU. They want to pull out of the New World Order. But do they? Remember, this little city of London isn't involved in that. And basically what they're doing is, in a sense, by pulling out, England pulling out, Scotland doesn't want to pull out. They, in fact, want to be a separate country now. Ireland didn't pull out. Why England? Well, if you go back in history, you'll see England has always been basically a Vatican colony. So what they're again doing is by getting out of the EU, they're giving their loyalty back to the Vatican. And isn't this interesting? If you look at Brexit that way, and also if you look about what the Queen said about turning it over to William. These guys, these writers know history pretty well. They really study the Bible for one reason, not to follow this grand plan that God gave us, which is so beautiful if you really think about it. He laid it all out in Genesis. And I'm going to explain that in a minute, but they want to corrupt it. They want to change it, reverse every bit of it. Whether it be in the spiritual realm, but that's not all. They want to do it in the political realm. And I'm going to show you how. So we have London, which is called basically what I call the financial producers of this big, huge stage play. Then we move over to, let's say, Washington, D.C. Now, we know that Washington, D.C. is not a part of the USA. It's a similar concept of the Vatican. Now, the District of Columbia is 10 square miles. D.C. has its own flag, its own independent constitution. The Constitution operates under a tyrannical Roman canon law. Because you see, there also, beholden to Rome. Every one of our signs and symbols on the Capitol buildings and the land it was built on Catholic land, on the Carroll family, who are tied up to the Jesuits. That should tell you. Georgetown, right next to the Vatican, is the key center of writing. That's where they do all this writing. The Act of 1871, passed by Congress, created a separate corporation known as the United States and Corporate Government of the District of Columbia. Why did they do this? Thus, D.C. acts as a corporation through the Act. The flag of Washington District of Columbia has 3 red stars. The 3 stars denoting D.C., Vatican City, the City of London. Now, we can go in depth on this, but I'm not going to. Research it yourself, and you'll see. And also the sign and symbol there of it is the Washington Monument, which is an obelisk, which shows you what they're really all about. It is not, although our Constitution says we're formed by, it has many glowing terms about God and Christianity, the real hidden agenda that these writers, these producers wanted all along was an occult system. The U.S. President is nothing more than a figurehead for the central bankers and the transnational corporations, both of which are controlled by high ecclesiastic Freemasonry and ecclesiastic canon law. Now, Vatican City. This is the head of the snake, the real power wielded. They control the spiritual element. And Vatican City carved itself out. It's not a part of Italy, part of Rome. It's the last true remnant, though, however, of the Roman Empire. And the state of Israel is also said to be a Roman outpost. And that's an interesting story, because we all know, if you talk to journalists who really are covering the story of Israel, that the Knesset, their ruling body, is nothing more than papal Jews working for Rome, although the people have been deceived. Now, the Vatican's wealth is it's vast, put it that way, probably the richest organization in the world. Includes investments with the Rothschilds in Britain, France, the U.S., with oil and weapons corporations as well. The Vatican billions are said to be in the Rothschild-controlled Bank of England. So they're the key. Rothschild's the banker, Vatican has the money, who's the boss? So they have a lot to say in writing this script called the presidential elections, don't they? Their money is more than just banks, though, corporations, or even some governments, and questions why the wealth is not used to elevate at least the Christian poor. When it preaches about giving, ask yourself a question about that. It's another thing they do. So, we know that the Vatican, well, how did they form Vatican City? Well, that during the time of Mussolini, Mussolini being a dictator, he then again reestablished Vatican City again back during that fascist period of time. Together, these 3 cities have under the wing various societies and groups placed globally with their own people, their own writers, their own actors working behind. Many of them, I call these guys that you never hear about, the secret societies, they're kind of like the stagehands, the real important guys, the nuts and bolts people, cameramen, all these guys that make this movie a reality. Without them, they got no show. And without, if you think about it, without you're not going to have a Hollywood movie if you don't have a good group of people behind the scenes doing all the hard work. Stagecraft and government craft. Here's what really it boils down to if you want to think about it. When you mix statecraft and spiritual craft, when you mix churchcraft and statecraft together, you have a combination of a real big problem. This is how they do this. Now, if you remember back during the Roman Empire, and the Bible talks about the mixture of iron and clay, right? And the 10 toes, the 10 kings, all of that stuff. Well, if you think about it, think of a big man standing with 1 foot in Rome, 1 foot in Constantinople in the east. Back during that time, they had control over both. And now, the last vestige of this even back then it was kind of a fake Christianity, wasn't it? Because what happened in the East? Back then there were many Christians not beholden to Rome. Many Christians, and they had to wipe them out. You hear the fall of Constantinople, the fall of the East, and if you look at the East now, the amount of Christians there is minimal. Now you do have the Vatican churches, which are not Christians, sitting next to mosques in countries that do not allow Christianity. Why is that? Because there's a real big story here. I think back during the 700s, when if we really study this, the Vatican was very smart. They created an enemy in the East to wipe out the true Christians, and that was Islam. And there are many facts that show you behind the scenes they were writing a story of creating this book called the Quran, which came about in the 700s, right? Or right after that. They created Muhammad. And they created this religion for one general thing, and that was to wipe out Christianity. Now, what are they doing today in their little plot? They're doing the same thing. They're doing the same thing, but now they want to take over this side. Not only, they want the West gone, again, under their control. They don't want nationalist countries. They don't want Christianity here. That's why you hear this onslaught on Christianity. That's why you see the onslaught on Christianity right here today. Because the same movie that they wrote back in the 700s are repeating here. But they never want to take the credit for writing any of this stuff. And aren't they a humble bunch? It's really an incredible, deceptive story they've written. And it all has to do with that little iron and clay being mixed together, creating an order out of a chaos. And basically what happens, and giving you away a little bit on their plot, how they operate, they fragment everything. They create chaos in the world so that out of that chaos, out of the Hegelian dialectic, you even see it in the presidential candidates, out of this Hegelian dialectic, they rub those things together to get the outcome they choose. And that's what the reality is we live in, which is really based on a fantasy. So somebody said, well, Greg, everything's real. What do you mean it's a movie? Well, let's use logic. If what they're giving you on that big stage, the presidential stage, and we'll use that as an example, is a false or a contrived narrative, if they're only giving you parts of what they want, if they're only writing the script with the outcome already determined based on a narrative that doesn't include the true factual situation of really's going on, doesn't include their true background, their true agenda, the truth about what they're doing with the Vatican City, what they're doing with the City of London, D.C., which is not a part of America, if they're not giving you that, it can't be real, right? It's just logical. So the outcome of what they give you, which is what people get, which everyday people get, can't be real either. And it only becomes real if you fill in the blanks. You understand who the producers are, the writers, the directors. You understand how they're lying to you, really. They're keeping things out of this movie that should be there. That's why you don't get the narrative we get on the show. Because my script, I would like to write one, and I could think of many different areas that would change the movie. But they won't let it in. And how many other people have tried to do that? Just can't get their story in their Hollywood movie, can you? And you can look at many. Look at Tony Alamo, who tried. Look at Tupper Saucy. They won't let it in the big show. Oh, there are many followers. But we're relegated as what? Outcasts. Oh, we can't even be movie reviewers. They won't even let us review them on the big stage. It has to be their way. And it's because they choose the media to be nothing more than Hollywood publicists for their show. And that's really how it operates. And when you see this play out, you have to say to yourself, wow, what a movie. And I pointed out some things. Brexit. I pointed out even going back to Constantinople and Rome, saying that Vatican City is the last vestige of Rome. And they want to do the same thing that the Roman Empire did. They want to control the world. And so that is their policy, and they do it in very deceptive ways. But they realize they cannot do it unless they have both the spiritual and the political areas covered into their script, written the way they want. And this includes banking, money, wars that they create, all of these things. And the media is very important here. That's why I got into Jesuit theater, Jesuit Ratio Studiorum, how they even, our founding fathers, went to Jesuit schools. Much of this stuff they don't want to take credit for. And it's either you may think they're very humble and they don't want you to know who the real movers and shakers are, or are they doing it because they can't get their movie out? They can't get their final outcome done if we know about them, the real truth about them. And isn't it just the way corruption is all over the world, even if you're not looking at them? Look at any industry. The way a bad boss gets away with things with his people that are working for him is by not telling him his true intentions. The way that, that's a perfect example. The way a pastor in one of these Protestant churches gets away with changing the Bible or not dealing with the issue of the Vatican, the book of Revelations, is by not telling you what his agenda is. So they do the same thing, but on a grand scale. So it's very interesting, and I want you really to research this triumvirate. It's always in threes, isn't it? 1, 2, 3. And what I'm going to do in the next part is we're going to get into the plot and how far back they really go, who's writing this, and how they use the Bible, how they distort it, how they reverse everything with principles of Satan. Yes, the same thing Satan would do to God and to Jesus, they're doing. And you're going to see how it plays out even in the world today with the various things that are going on in our country. And if you read Genesis closely, you'll see that in that short little beginning of the Bible, he lays the perfect plan out, the perfect plan, and even said, on the seventh day, we will rest, I will rest. And what he's meaning there is that's kind of the observance of understanding him through faith. Because he says, nothing more can be done. I have laid out the perfect scenario. Man cannot change what God has laid out. And you look at it and you just go, wow, that's exactly what they're doing. They're trying to change everything, even as far back as Genesis. So we're going to go into that. And what we're going to do, I found someone who dealt with this subject that really hits the nail on the head and explains it so well. Next show, tomorrow I'm going to interview Bert Krantz of the Alamo Ministry, because I really want to keep in the forefront the idea of Christianity being, there's an onslaught on true Christianity here, and it's really not dealt with either in this grand scheme, this play that these presidential election, these people acting as the presidential nominees are doing. They can't, it's not written in. The writers won't let them write this part of the story in, so we got to get it out. So that's what I'm going to do tomorrow. But after that, I'm going to start with their plot, show you how it's relevant today and how far back they go and how they meld together both churchcraft and statecraft to get their way. The iron and the clay coming together. And also, I'm going to do it from 2 points of view. I'm going to do it and explain it in a sense from my point of view, using the words that I use, almost like talking to you over a cup of coffee. And then I want to bring in a more scholarly look at this, someone who's studied it and has a very articulate approach to this subject to give you a real idea of their plot in a different way, because I know there's many ways to explain it, and mine may appeal to some, and the gentleman I'm going to allow to present this may appeal to others. So I want to get maximum exposure on this, because both of us can't get our script in. to the big shots. We can write all we want. We can have fact after fact after fact that needs to be discussed, but we can't get it in the big movie. And the real idea of this is, I believe that God laid out the most wonderful plan for man, for woman, for the animals, for the earth that we live on, for everything. And he laid it out simply. And wouldn't it be great if the world would just follow that? But you know, these tricksters, these writers, these people who have tried to copy the Bible, tried to reverse it, change it, and do it both not only in the spiritual world, but in the political world. They have really done a number, not only on us, but on God. But in the end, as it is said, and as they know, they won't have the last word. And that you can be sure of. And so I think they know that too. So they're going to try to change as much as they can before that. And you're going to see the policies of Obama, the policies of what's going on in England, some of the laws that just passed in South Africa, and going to the Vatican and their position on social justice, and I put that in quotes, is opposed to God's plan. It's opposed to God's plan. And if that is opposed to God's plan, it is opposed to me. So, I hope you enjoyed this. Check out these 3 cities. And if you have more information, please bring it forward. Tomorrow we'll have Bert Krantz on. And then Wednesday we'll get back to the greatest off-Broadway stage play ever produced by man, the presidential elections 2016. Good night. See you tomorrow.
Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. That's crosstheborder.org.
I know you all want answers, and believe me, so do I, and I'll do my best to get them.
Despite Nicolas Cage's promise to do his best to get left behind rapture answers for us, don't hold your breath. Not everyone believes Left Behind is true prophecy. Some may even regard as conspiratorial the mainstream re-release of the Left Behind movie, with actor Nicolas Cage portraying the main character, as an attempt to further reinforce in the minds of all this perception of false prophecy, in order to condition the masses for the play about to begin. If you want true Bible prophecy answers, get the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. The author exposes the Latin rapture origin, the 7-year tribulation deception, true Bible revelation of Daniel's 70 weeks, the abomination of desolation, the restrainer, America in the Revelation, the image of the beast and the mark of the beast, and the truth about God's chosen people, and so much more about Bible prophecy. This book will shatter the Left Behind paradigm of future events. Get the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. That's crosstheborder.org.